Umlilo lo eguyasha umlilo lo eguyasha umlilo lo eguyasha bantwana bami Hoyasha bantwana bami Hoyasha bantwana bami Hoyasha bantwana bami Evidani fire brigade Umlilo lo
Mandla awethu. Comrades, the commander-in-chief is about to enter. So, we must sing a song. All of us must stand up. Zonga kale, zonga kale, zonga kale, kuzolonga. Zonga kale, zonga kale, zonga kale, kuzolonga. Yo, yo. Songa kale kuzolonga, yo iya o. Songa kale kuzolonga, ho abafana babolala umlongese mama batala isono, hela abafana babu lalo umlongese mama. Ababoshe, yo, yo, songa kale kuzolonga, yo, yo, songa kale kuzolonga, itelele, itelele, itelele tilaye. Sabaya, songa kali kuzolonga. Sabaya, baya, sanja, 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 sanja. Sabaya, baya, sabaya, baya, sabaya, baya, oh sabaya. Songa kali kuzolo, chio, 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 baba, chio. Eskate se kama branches ngalale bosogo babengeko. Eskate se kama branches ngalale boso babengeko. Eskate se kama branches ngalale boso babengeko. Anginizwa. Esaskate seikama branches ngalale woso eba belele heye wo lolo wololo wololo heye wo lolo wololo wolo Santa
Amandla awethu wayithukuta thuthu wayithukuta wayithukuta thuthu wayithukuta. No, thank you very much, comrades. You may sit down. We want to take this opportunity to officially greet the President and Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, who is accompanied by the Deputy President of the EFF, Godrich Gadi, as well as the leadership of the EFF, CCT members, PCT, leadership of the EFF Youth Command, the leadership of the branch that is here, leadership of the SRC, and most importantly, the fighters and ground forces who made this program a success. So comrades, as we always do in the EFF, we are going to open with a prayer. And our prayer is the national anthem that was composed by Enoch Songtonga that does not have distem. And that national anthem is going to be led by Commissar Naotambo. Amandla! Kawe, 2.
Mandla! Let's all stand up, comrades. Those who are wearing caps, you must take them off unless you're wearing a beret. Let's all stand up and be disciplined. We are going to sing Go Sigileli Africa as composed by Enoch Sontonga without distem. So take off your hat in honor of those who came before us, in honor of Onkgopotse Tiro. So no walking around, no talking. Let's sing together, comrades. Ngosi sigeleli Afrika, malupaganyisu pondolwayo, izwa imitandazo yetu. Ngosi sigelela thina lusapho lwayo, Ngosi sigeleli Afrika, maluphakanyisu phondo lwayo, izwa imithandazo yethu. Ngosi sigelela thina lusapho lwayo, sithi woza moya, moya woza, woza moya, oh moya woza, woza moya, oyi, oyi ngcwele. Ngosi sigelela thina lusapho lwayo, morena buluka setšhaba sa Yesu, ho fedise dintwa le matshwenyego. Morena buluka setšhaba sa Yesu, ho fedise dintwa le matshwenyego. Ho se boloke ho se boloke morena, ha setšhaba sa Yesu, setšhaba sa Afrika, o se boloke ho se boloke morena, ha setšhaba sa Yesu, setšhaba sa Afrika. Makube njalo, makube njalo, kute kube ngunapha kate, kute kube ngunapha, makube, makube, makube njalo, kute kube ngunapha kate, kute kube ngunapha kate. Mandla!
Amandla, Kawe 2. Without wasting any time, we're going to call on the branch chairperson of the EFF Youth Command here at the University of Limpopo to come and as well as introduce the branch leadership that is here. Thereafter, we're going to have a rendition by one of the students who will be performing a poem for us. Branch Chairperson.
Mancha! Mancha! Away, to! Away, to! Viva EFF, viva! Viva EFF, viva! Viva EFF, viva! Viva CIC, viva! Viva CIC, viva! Viva Unilim, viva! Viva Unilim, viva! No, thanks very much, Program Director. Speaking here is the chairperson of EFF Youth Command, Ulimim Branch, Seven-Chan Calvin. Thanks very much for the warm welcome. I would like to start by greeting the President and the Commander-in-Chief of the Economic Freedom Fighters, Morena Mutompiri Julius Malema, Rawamagela. The Deputy President, of the EFF, Morena Kotrich Gadi, and all members of Central Command Team present here, the university leadership, student leaders, the distinguished guests, the ground forces, and the students of University of Limpopo. Good afternoon. On behalf of the Economic Freedom Fighters Youth Command at University of Limpopo, I welcome you all to this historic public lecture. Today is a significant occasion. We gather not only as students, but as young people committed to engaging with ideas, leadership, and the future of our country. This public lecture provides an opportunity to discuss challenges facing young people, higher education, unemployment, economic development, and the role that students can play in shaping South Africa. As we meet here today, the Economic Freedom Fighters also celebrate its 13th anniversary, a milestone that reflects over a decade of political participation, activism, and engagement in national issues. We acknowledge this anniversary and extend our best wishes for the celebrations taking place in Toyando in 25th of July, this Saturday. We're all going there. As the students, we face many challenges: access to quality education, financial hardship, graduate unemployment, inadequate accommodation, and unequal opportunities to remain realities for many young South Africans. These are issues that deserve thoughtful discussion and practical solutions. Universities should not only produce graduates, but only cultivate informed citizens who contribute positively into the society. So today we encourage every student present to listen attentively and ask meaningful questions if possible, and also participate respectively so. These public lectures are spaces for learning, exchanging perspectives, and broadening our understanding of the issues that affect our communities in our nation. So, to our guests, thank you for accepting our invitation and for taking the time to engage with the students of the University of Limpopo. Your presence today demonstrates the importance of dialogue between national leaders and young people. To every student in this hall, let today inspire you all to become informed, disciplined, and committed to building a South Africa that offers dignity, opportunity, and justice for all. Once again, I welcome you all. Amandla! Amandla! Yatsena EFF, yatsena! Yatsena EFF, yatsena! Tata EFF, tata! Tata EFF, tata! Oza, 4th November, oza! Oza, 4th November, oza! Rotia, musho, rotia! Rotia, musho, rotia! Thanks very much.
Amandla. Gawe, 2. Before we call on the poem, I'd like the branch leadership of the Youth Command here at Unilim and all SRC deployees to just stand up and wave so that the students can see their branch leadership here at the University of Limpopo and their SRC. I thought the chairperson will introduce them. Amandla. We're now going to have a poem rendition that is performed by one of the students here who are in the Performance and Arts President. Amandla! Long live the Commander-in-Chief, long live! Long live the Commander-in-Chief, long live! No, thank you very much. Without wasting time, we're now going to call on the National Coordinator of the EFF Youth Command, Komisanaledi Chirwa, to take us through and introduce the leadership that is here with us today. Amandla!
Amandla! Viva EFF Youth Command, viva! Viva Mfazo Mnyama, viva! Viva EFF, viva! Viva Commander-in-Chief Julius Malema, viva! Fortec, AfriForum, Fortec! Fortec, ANC, Fortec! Fortec, DA, Fortec! Fortec, GNU, Fortec! Fortec, Fortec, Fortec! Fortec, Fortec, Fortec! Fortec, Fortec, Fortec! Sanwanan, Dumelang. Legai. Rona, kan lina ke nana Lady Chirwa, presiding over the introduction of the leadership of the EFF and the EFF Youth Command. It's going to be very short. We're just going to have AmaCCT members, just to wave their hands and then go through the rest of them. We have amongst our midst, wait, before we even get into that, Commander-in-Chief Julius Malema and Deputy President, revolutionary greetings to all of you and all of you guys as well. Look at the person next to you and say, I love you so much. Great, amazing, amazing. So to say hi first is the spokesperson of the EFF, Ukomisa Tembimsane. She will come. Up next is Komsasina Otambo, who led us through the real national anthem of Africa. The chairperson of Gauteng, Ukomsa Nkululeko Dunga, who's also our first MEC in the EFF. I'm not sure if the PCT is amongst us, the PCT of Limpopo, but if they can just stand to their feet and just wave around, we'd really appreciate it. And then moving right on, we're going to introduce, or rather, Basugumena Wabasi Weivele, the national leadership of the EFF Youth Command. Amongst us, we've got Lydia Madume, who's from here in Limpopo, from Tabazimbi. We have Kentani Mashabani from Palaburwa. We have Pumelelani Mshumi from the Western Cape. We've got Rekon Matebula from the Western Cape, Ukanya Pungane from the Northwest, Amanda Ntombela from Gauteng, Nyakallo Mukwena from Gauteng, and in the province we've got the coordinators of the province, Umudidi Masikwela, he's right on stage with us. And the second coordinator, Kabelo Sinamulela, who's also with us right on stage. Umontana Rasesemula, who's a PYILC member and PYETF member there, over the corner there. Mpoma Gaze is also with us. Please just wave so we can see you quickly, quick and fast. Perfect. And then we also have seen the branch convener, Utsabentlane Kelvin. Just wave again. And the coordinator of EFF YC Unilim, Charlotte Masere. Please just wave, TG. She also serves in the SRC of EFF YC Unilim. And we also have our SRC. They already waved, but just wave again. Just wave again. These are your students. You are leading them. Itini High, Bati High back. Perfect. And then we also have some other sub-regions which are amongst us. Namhlanje. Polokwane sub-region, please say hello. Palaburo sub-region, say hello. Tabazimbi, say hello. Tulamela, say who's it? If you are registered to vote, say it lucky. Oza for November, Oza. Oza 25 July, Oza. Siyaithatha Limpopo, siyaithatha. Amandla. Bye, thank you.
Amandla. Gawe 2. Mayaka, 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 yaka, yaka. Awelele, mayaka, yaka, sezene tena. Awelele, mayaka, 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 yaka, ya. Awelele, mayaka, yaka, sezene tena. Amandla. Away 2. No, thank you very much, fighters. We're now going close to the main meal of the day. So we're going to respectfully ask the Deputy President of the EFF, Commissar Godrich Gadi. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you here at the University of Limpopo, Nyamazi, because each and every SRC elections, he is always the first point of call when we want assistance from the leadership. So we're going to call on the Deputy President to respectfully come to the stage and lead the program from now onwards. Thank you, TP.
Amandla, Matla, Matimba, Manda. Thank you very much. With all due respect, we wish to apologize on behalf of the organization and the leadership for being delayed and to join you in this celebration and lecture today. All the way from Vembe to Moses Kotane, from Moses Kotane to Rustenburg, the president has been almost in 3 provinces in one day, and hence he had to be delayed to be here. It was no coincidence that he had to be delayed and be in so many provinces in one day. The organization has lost a gallant soldier, a member of the provincial legislature, a lady of soul, a revolutionary lady Fighter Primrose Boykhatso, a member of the EFF since 2013, a ground force and an organizer of the first rally of the EFF in Marikana in 2013. We had to go there and take the president to speak to the family and also to attend and give a keynote address in the memorial service of our fighter. Comrades and compatriots, that much said, we wish to thank you very much for being with us here today. It is very important that we speak to our children. We say you are our children because even the firstborn of the president is of your age. And my children, in fact, I'm now a grandfather. So when I speak to you, we speak to our children and our grandchildren. The latest research, most of you are doing your research, mini research, dissertation, and you'll be doing your research very soon to be awarded your honors or your masters. The latest research in South Africa indicates that there are 60 million people registered, 60 million citizens in South Africa. Out of them, 41 million are eligible to vote. Unfortunately, only 26 million are registered to vote. Meaning that there is a missing 15 million. In that missing 15 million, the study shows that those eligible to vote in the age range of 18 to 29 is in excess of 7 million. And those are the young people who are found in TVETs, in universities, in grade 12, unemployed, in churches, in sports ground, and of course, even in taverns. If we cannot speak to the 6 million young people between the ages of 18 and 29, we are going to bequeath to you and bestow a future in your hands that is doomed, a future that has been determined by our elders who are so loyal to the liberation movement. You owe nothing to the liberation movement, nor does it owe you anything, the liberation movement. With these few words, fighters, let us welcome our President and Commander-in-Chief, Comrade President Julius Malema.
Amandla! Amandla! Viva EFF Youth Command! Viva! Thank you very much, Deputy President, Commissars who are here, Convener and Coordinator of the Youth Command, both the province and national, and all the leaders of the SRC who are here, the branch of the Youth Command, and the ground forces of our movement. Academics, workers, members of the university community, the people of Limpopo, the people of South Africa, and the diaspora. It is a profound honor to stand before you at the University of Limpopo, at Tefliop, on the eve of the 13th anniversary of the Economic Freedom Fighters, because there are few places in South Africa that carry the historical weight of this institution. We are meeting here at a historic site of resistance, a place where the meaning of education was contested, where the authority of apartheid was challenged, and where the dignity of black people was asserted. Here, a generation of young people understood that the struggle for liberation could not be separated from the struggle to liberate the mind for the ideological domination of colonialism and apartheid. We stand at Tefliop, a place whose history you cannot separate from the life and political contribution of Onkgopotse Tiro. Onkgopotse Tiro was born in 1947 in Dinokana near Zeerust, in what was then the Western Transvaal, into a society in which the movement, residence, education and economic opportunities of black people were controlled by a racist state. This young man from Dinokana eventually arrived at the University of the North, which we know today as University of Limpopo, in the late 1960s. He came to Tafelop to study, but like many of the students who passed through this institution, he entered a university that existed within a society where black people were denied political power and subjected to an education system designed to reproduce their subordination. The University of the North was a university for black students, so it was governed within the framework of apartheid. Black people could therefore be educated, but the education system was structured by a political order that denied them equality. A limited number of black students could acquire degrees, but the society in which they will graduate remained designed to deny them equal economic and political participation. It was during Tiro's time at Tafelop that he became increasingly involved in student politics and emerged as a prominent leader within the Student Representative Council. He was also associated with the South African Students' Organization, SASO, which was becoming one of the most important organizations in the development of the black consciousness movement. The students of Tafelop were not operating in isolation from the wider intellectual currents of the time. They were reading and discussing the works of Frantz Fanon, Jean-Paul Sartre, and other thinkers whose ideas challenged colonialism, racism, and the political domination of oppressed people. They were engaging with the experiences of African leaders such as Julius Nyerere and Kenneth Kaunda. With the rise of black political power in the United States and with the broader political struggles taking place across the African continent, they were asking questions that apartheid did not want them to ask. Why should black people be governed by a minority? Why should the people who produce wealth remain poor? Why should black people be educated in institutions that they do not control? Why should a university that exists to educate black people remain subject to the authority of a system that regards black people as inferior? These questions produce the political environment in which Onkgopotse Tiro emerged as a leader. In 1972, Tiro had completed his degree in education and was pursuing further studies when he was selected to speak on behalf of the graduating class at the graduation ceremony of the University of the North. The occasion was supposed to be a formal and ceremonial event. It was expected that the speaker will praise the university and the system within which it operates. However, Tiro understood that the university was not separate from the political reality of apartheid, and he refused to use the platform to conceal the truth. Tiro confronted the political system directly and criticized the Bantu Education Act of 1953, the unfair and unjust system that were in place at Tafelop, and questioned, I quote, "We do not have a system of education common to all South Africans. What is there in European education which is not good for the African? We want a system of education which is common to all South Africans." Speaking about the responsibility of black graduates, he declared, I quote, "We black graduates, by virtue of our age and academic standing, are being called upon to bear a greater responsibility in the liberation of our people." This was a profound challenge to the idea that education existed for individual advancement alone. Tiro was saying that the educated black person could not regard their degree as a private possession detached from the conditions of the majority. Education created responsibility, knowledge knowledge created obligations, and the university graduate had to return to the people and participate in the struggle for liberation. He went further and issued one of the most devastating criticism of the black leadership that had been incorporated into the apartheid system when he said, I quote, "Our so-called leaders have become the balls of the same machine which is crushing us as a nation. We have to go back to them and educate them." This statement is important because Tiro understood that colonialism and apartheid system do not rule only through the direct power of oppression. They also attempt to produce those who go in between, who can give legitimacy to the system, who can persuade the oppressed to accept limited reforms, and who can become the instrument through which domination is maintained. He was saying that black people could not accept positions within a system that continue to deny the majority genuine power, and that education must produce people who are capable of challenging authority rather than merely serving it. The apartheid authorities could not tolerate the speech. Tiro was expelled from the university because he had exposed the political reality of the institution, and had done so because the representatives of the university and the apartheid system were there. The university became a site of mass resistance. A student organized, protested, and demanded his reinstatement. The authorities responded with repression and eventually closed the university. The expulsion of Tiro, therefore, produced precisely the opposite of what apartheid authorities had intended. The students of University of Cape Town also protested in solidarity with Tiro and against his expulsion. They wanted to silence a student, but they created a nation of political crisis. They wanted to isolate an individual, but they helped to spread his ideas across the country. The significance of Tiro's speech was that it demonstrated the power of student politics as a force within the broader liberation struggle. Teflo became one of the important centers for which black consciousness politics spread. Tiro himself was not finished with the struggle after his expulsion. He went to Soweto and became a teacher at Morris Isaacson High School. At this school, he helped create a culture of political consciousness among students. The school will later become closely associated with the student resistance that culminated in the Soweto uprising of 1976. And one of the young people influenced by the political environment created there was Tsietsi Mashinini, who will become one of the most prominent student leaders of the 1976 uprising. The relationship between Tiro's political work and the events of 1976 is therefore part of the historical chain that connects Teflo, black consciousness, and the politicization of students of the 1976 student mass revolt against apartheid. Tiro's influence also extended through the South African Student Organization. After his expulsion, he continued his political work within a black consciousness tradition and became involved in organizing SASO nationally. He was appointed a permanent organizer of the organization and later became associated with the South African student movement. The apartheid state continued to regard him as a threat. In the early 1970s, the repression of black consciousness activists intensified. Tiro eventually went into exile and he continued his political work outside South Africa. Unfortunately, on the 1st of February 1974, while in Botswana, Onkgopotse Tiro was killed by a parcel bomb sent by agents of the apartheid state. He was only 26 years old when he died. The brutality of his assassination must be understood in the context of his life. They killed a young revolutionary whose life had been dedicated to education, organization, and the political consciousness of black people. Steve Biko captured the essence of the political and psychological struggle when he wrote, "The most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed." Biko understood the material realities of apartheid very clearly. He understood the theft of land, the exploitation of labor, the destruction of African political power, and the economic foundation of racial domination. Yet he also understood that a system of oppression becomes more powerful when the oppressed are made to internalize ideas that justify their oppression. Black consciousness therefore sought to break the psychological foundation of apartheid. It insisted that black people must reject the definition imposed upon them by the oppressors and must develop the confidence and political consciousness necessary to become agents of their own liberation. It was a rejection of the inferiority imposed upon black people and an assertion that the oppressed had to define themselves and determine their own political destiny. This is where the life and contribution of Onkgopotse Tiro became so important. Tiro was not simply a student who protested against the university administration. He was part of a generation that was beginning to understand that the struggle for liberation requires the transformation of the way black people understood themselves and their position in society. The political contribution of black consciousness was therefore much greater than the production of a language of pride. It transformed the political imagination of a generation. It taught young black people to see themselves not as passive subjects of apartheid administration, but as historical actors capable of challenging and ultimately destroying the system. It taught that the oppressed must not wait for permission from the oppressor to become free. It placed dignity, consciousnness, and self-definition at the center of political struggle. This is why apartheid regime feared the most. The apartheid regime feared the movement. They understood that a politically conscious black youth represented a threat more profound than any individual protest, because the movement challenged the ideological foundation upon which apartheid depended. A government may suppress a demonstration, arrest an organizer, or ban an organization, but it becomes far more difficult to control a generation that has stopped believing in the legitimacy of the system. The influence of this political consciousness extended far beyond the university, and the students of 1976 did not emerge from political vacuum. The generation that rose against the imposition of Africans and against the wider system of apartheid had been influenced by a growing culture of black political consciousness and resistance. The uprising was part of a longer process in which black people had begun to reject the authority of apartheid and the idea that the state had the right to determine the limits of their humanity. The young people of 1976 understood what Frantz Fanon had warned about when he wrote that, I quote, "A generation must discover its mission, fulfill it or betray it." The generation of Tiro discovered its mission in the struggle against apartheid education and psychological domination of black people. The generation of 1976 discovered its mission in the open revolt against Bantu education. From Teflop, we therefore say that the memory of Onkgopotse Tiro is not a memory of defeat, but a memory of courage, political clarity, and resistance. His life reminds us that even young persons standing within an oppressive institution can challenge an authority of an entire system when they possess the courage to speak and the consciousness to understand the historical significance of their actions. It is impossible to understand the history of the liberation struggle in South Africa without understanding the central role played by young people. The youth were not simply the future of the struggle, as they were often described by those who wanted to postpone their political participation. The youth were present in the struggle. They were not merely waiting to inherit a free South Africa. They were actively involved in creating the conditions under which freedom could become possible. At every decisive moment in the history of the struggle, young people played a role in giving political resistance its agency, its courage, and its militancy. It was the youth who refused to accept that the oppression of black people was normal. It was the youth who refused to accept that fear was a permanent condition of political life. It was the youth who challenged the authority of the apartheid state in the universities, in the schools, and eventually in the streets. The importance of this cannot be overstated, because every oppressive system depends upon convincing the younger generation that the existing order is too powerful to challenge and that resistance is futile. The great contribution of the youth of the black consciousness generation was that they rejected this idea before the apartheid system had been defeated militarily and politically. The militance of the youth is never a product of recklessness. In 2015 and 2016, a new generation of students once demonstrated the political power of the youth through the Fees Must Fall movement. The students of the Fees Must Fall were born after the normal end of apartheid. They did not experience the past laws, the Group Areas Act, Bantu education in its original form, or the open political repression of the apartheid state. They were born into a democratic South Africa, but they became of age in a society where they had to challenge the apartheid system. They entered universities that were formally opened to all but remained deeply unequal. They were told that the doors of learning and culture were open, but many of them discovered that access to higher education was still determined by economic circumstances of their families. They were told that apartheid had ended, but they encountered universities in which the languages, symbols, curriculums, and institutional culture continue to reflect the history of colonialism and white privilege. Fees Must Fall, therefore, represent more than a demand about the cost of university fees. It was a rebellion against the continued commercialization of education and against the idea that access to knowledge should depend upon the ability of a family to pay. The movement was also significant because it demonstrated that the youth of post-apartheid South Africa had not accepted the idea that democracy meant the end of the struggle. The students understood that the political system had changed, but the economic structure that shaped access to education had not been fundamentally transformed. The students of Fees Must Fall, like a generation of black consciousness in 1976, challenged the idea that young people should simply be grateful for whatever opportunities the system provides. The students who challenges the commercialization of education is continuing the question raised by the black consciousness. Who controls the institutions that shape the lives of black people? And whose interests do those institutions serve? The students who rejects financial exclusion is confronting a post-apartheid economic order that has not dismantled the material inequalities produced by colonialism and apartheid. The student of Fees Must Fall, therefore, stands within the same historical tradition as the students of black consciousness and the students of 1976. Not because the circumstances are identical, but because each generation confronted the structures that limited its freedom. This is a lesson that the youth of today must draw from these generations. However, fighters and deputy president, before we speak about what we must do, we must first speak honestly about what has been done to us. We must speak honestly about the betrayal that has taken place, because we cannot stand before you and deliver motivational speeches about your potential while ignoring the reality that millions of you have been systematically denied the opportunity to realize that potential. We cannot tell you to work hard when you have worked hard, studied hard, passed examination, completed degrees, and still find yourself standing outside the gates of the economy. We cannot tell you to remain hopeful when you have submitted applications after applications, attended interview after interview, and watch opportunity continue to go to those with connections, money, or family names. You have been told that education is the key to the future, and you believed that promise. You went to school under conditions of deep inequality, often studying in overcrowded classrooms and under-resourced schools, and you were told that if you persevere, education will open the doors of opportunities. Many of you became the first in your families to attend universities and entered universities carrying the hopes of the entire family. Your mothers sold goods. Your fathers worked long hours. Your families borrowed money and sacrificed necessities because they believed that your qualification will create a different future. However, when you reached the university, you encountered another barrier. You encountered registration fees that your families could not afford, accommodation that was unavailable and unaffordable, food insecurity, transport costs, and textbook costs you could not purchase. You were told that doors of learning were open, but many of you discovered that the doors were open only to those who could afford to enter. And for those of you who managed to overcome these barriers, another wall waited for you at the graduation. You completed your studies, you passed your examinations, and you earned your qualifications. But because of historical debt, the university withheld the very certificate that was supposed to be the reward for your labor. The cruelty of that situation is heavy because you have done everything that society told you to do. You attended lectures, submitted assignment, wrote examination, completed a degree, but you are still denied the document that proves your achievement. The system tells you to obtain qualification, then prevents you from using that qualification. The system tells you to become employable, then refuses to employ you. However, when you became angry, the same system asks you, why are you angry? This is a betrayal that you feel. You graduate and discover that the degree does not guarantee employment. You send your CV to companies that never respond. You apply for internship that require experience you cannot have because you have never been given an opportunity to work. You apply for entry-level positions that demands years of experience. You sit at home with qualifications that you cannot use while your parents ask you, when are you going to find work? As if unemployment is a personal failure rather than a structural crisis. You watch people with political connections receiving opportunities while you remain unemployed. You watch tenders being awarded to the connected while your own small businesses struggle to survive. You watch billions disappear through corruption while you are told that there is no money for education, no money for accommodation, no money for youth development, and no money for employment. There is a young person in this country who has stopped applying for jobs because rejection has become so routine that they no longer expect a positive response. There is a young person who no longer believes that their qualification will change their life because they've watched graduates remain unemployed for years. There is a young person who has abandoned university because the financial barriers became too big. There is a young person who has completed a degree but cannot graduate because of debt. There is a young person who's trapped in a cycle of temporary work, casual labor, and unemployment. When you begin to believe that nothing will change, it is a political crisis because when hope is systematically destroyed, you do not simply become unemployed. You become alienated from society. You begin to withdraw from politics. You begin to believe that elections are meaningless, that politicians are all the same, that participation cannot change your circumstances. Some of you surrender to alcohol. Some surrender to drugs. Some surrender to crime. Some surrender to depression and isolation. Some leave the country because you no longer believe that South Africa is a future for you. And others remain here but are psychologically defeated. We must not condemn you without first asking what society has done to you. You have been told that your time will come. But for millions of young people, every year that passes is another year of unemployment, another year of debt, another year of dependence, and another year in which potential is wasted. This is why we must understand your age. The youth of black consciousness were also told that they were powerless. They were told that apartheid was too strong, that the state was too powerful, that resistance would lead only to punishment. But they rejected the idea that fear should determine the limits of their potential imagination. The youth of 1976 were also confronted by a system that appeared invisible. They knew that the police had guns, that the state had prisons, and that consequences of resistance could be deadly. But they reached a point at which the humiliation of remaining silent became greater than the fear of resistance. The youth of Feast Must Fall reached that point and occupied campuses and said that education cannot be treated as a luxury. They said that a democratic society cannot continue to exclude the children of the poor from institutions that are supposed to serve the public. You must learn from this generation, from black consciousness. You must learn that the first victory of the oppressor is to convince the oppressed that they are powerless. From 1976, you must learn that fear cannot be allowed to determine the limits of resistance. And from Feast Must Fall, you must learn that even in a democracy, you must continue to organize when institutions reproduce exclusion. This is why the EFF exists. The EFF exists because we refuse to tell you that your suffering is normal, that you must simply wait for the economy to improve, that unemployment is a personal failure, or that your future must depend upon the goodness of those who already own the wealth of the country. The EFF exists to organize the anger of the people into a political force capable of taking power and transforming the institutions that shape your lives. This is why the EFF has advanced that the Data Must Fall campaign. The demand for affordable data is a demand for access to education, employment, information, and economic opportunity. When you are a student and you cannot afford data, you are denied access to academic resources. If you are unemployed and cannot afford data, you are denied access to employment opportunities. Even worse, the data comes with expiry date as if it's food. If you are trying to build a small business and cannot afford data, you are denied access to customers and markets. And when you are expected to live in a digital economy but cannot afford the basic tool that allows you to participate in that economy, you are being economically excluded. The communications companies that makes enormous profit from the people of this country, yet the young people who need data to study, to apply for jobs, and to build businesses are expected to pay some of the highest prices of access. The EFF therefore challenged Vodacom, MTN, Telkom, and more in Parliament that data must fall because digital access has become a basic requirement for participation in modern society. ICASA stood with us and directed the removal of data expiry over time. But the fight is still on to reduce the cost and make data accessible. We cannot speak about a knowledge economy, a digital economy, and the fourth industrial revolution while the children of the poor are excluded from the internet by the price of data. Additionally, we cannot speak about unemployment, hopelessness, the crisis of youth development while pretending that the aggressive commercialization of alcohol has no relationship to the condition in which our communities live. You are surrounded by alcohol advertising, targeted by an industry that spends enormous amounts of money to associate alcohol with success, celebration, masculinity, popularity, and social status, while the consequences of alcohol abuse are carried by families and communities that are already struggling with poverty and unemployment. This is why the EFF has pursued the Legal Amendment Bill. The purpose of this legislation is to restrict the advertising and marketing of alcohol beverages and to prevent the liquor industry from aggressively promoting alcohol in a society already facing enormous social challenges. We cannot allow an industry to make enormous profits by making alcohol everywhere to everyone and then leave communities to carry the consequences of addiction, violence, road death, domestic abuse, and social destruction. You cannot walk through a township without encountering heavy alcohol advertising at every corner, and every event, especially for the youth, is sponsored by an alcohol brand. Yet, you can walk through the same township and struggle to find a functioning library, a safe public recreational facility, a properly maintained sports ground, or a space where young people can develop their talent. The priorities of the systems are clear. There is money to advertise alcohol. There is money to profit from you, but there is never enough money to invest in your future. The EFF rejects this. We say that the protection of young people and communities must take priority over the profit of industries that benefit from social destruction. The Liquor Amendment Bill is therefore part of a broader struggle to create an environment in which young people can develop rather than being commercially targeted by industries that profit from despair, addiction, and vulnerability. This is also why every year we pursue Sisofunda Ngenkani campaign, because we understand that the obstacle confronting you are not individual failures. Sisofunda Ngenkani is a declaration that the EFF will continue to fight for access to education and for the removal of financial obstacles that prevent children of the poor from learning and advancing themselves. The EFF has also introduced the Student Debt Relief Bill into Parliament. This bill is for the young person who has completed every academic requirement but cannot receive their qualifications because they owe the fees. Because how are you supposed to pay the debt if you cannot get the job because you do not have a certificate? This is a vicious circle designed to keep you trapped. The Student Debt Relief Bill proposed that the government clear all the debt currently owed by students in order for them to get their qualifications and begin a future. We have also had to fight against an attempt to turn universities into credit agencies and to blacklist students because they cannot pay their fees. The EFF opposed the proposed regulation that would have allowed educational institutions to provide credit information and potentially expose students to blacklisting for unpaid fees. We said that you must not be treated like criminals because you are poor, and that young people who seek an education must not be handed over to the debt collectors and credit agencies as a punishment for coming from a working class family. As it stands, the University of Pretoria has followed our lead and instituted a 3-year campaign to raise 50 million to help graduates who have completed all the academic requirements for their degrees but remain unable to access their qualifications because of outstanding historical debt. This is the power of the EFF fighting for the youth. This is the power of the EFF Youth Command fighting for themselves and you, their peers here at the University of Limpopo and across the country. One by one, these institutions will realize the shame inherent in the system that failed poor students, and one by one, through our example, they will set up campaigns like the University of Pretoria and assist students in need. Furthermore, the EFF will succeed in pushing forward the cancellation of all student debt by government, because your government owes you a future. You don't owe them nothing. This is not where it ends. The EFF is also working for young people in Parliament to challenge madness of fees they need to pay to professional bodies in order to be registered and therefore employed. Accountants, health workers, engineers, architects, and many more are required to maintain membership in these bodies, and yet, for many, these fees are unreasonable and leave them further away from employment. We cannot have a simple fee stopping a trained professional from working in their field. This is why the EFF is challenging these professional bodies in Parliament so that when young people graduate and qualify, their registration process is smooth and not another barrier to success. However, our work in Parliament alone is not enough because political power exists everywhere. You cannot continue to say that politics is irrelevant while other people make decisions that determine your future. You cannot complain about unemployment and then allow those who govern to remain in power without challenge. You cannot complain about corruption and then refuse to participate in determining who controls public resources. You cannot say that your future has been stolen and then surrender the political instrument through which that future can be reclaimed. This is why we call upon every young person who is eligible to vote to register. And after you register, you must vote in the upcoming local government election. Do not allow anyone to tell you that your vote does not matter. The people who benefit from the existing system want you to believe that. They want you to become so despondent that you withdraw from politics while they continue to govern and control public resources. Finally, on behalf of the economic freedom fighters, I invite you, the students of the University of Limpopo, the young people of Limpopo, to join us on Saturday, the 25th July, at the Thohoyandou Stadium as we celebrate the 13th anniversary of the economic freedom fighters. On Saturday, 25 July, at Thohoyandou Stadium, we'll gather to reaffirm the historical mission of the oppressed, to honor those who came before us, to organize those who are present, and to prepare the generation that must complete the unfinished revolution. As Onkgopotse Tiro once said, I quote, "Some of you will be called a number of names, the most prominent of which will be communist. Some of you will be forced to sleep with hungry stomachs. Some will be faced with external separation from their parents and friends. Some will languish in prison. This is not new. Our forerunners have suffered all this. No struggle can come to an end without casualties. It is only through determination, absolute commitment, and self-assertion that we shall overcome. I ask you then to remember that the future is not something that will be given to you. The future is something you must organize for, fight for, and take it. The future is not what is going to come tomorrow. The future is what is happening today. You create what is going to happen tomorrow, today. That's why when you sleep drunk, you wake up with hunger. You wake up with hangover because you decided that tomorrow shall be determined by alcohol intake today. That's what the future means. You must never suffer from hangover. You must sleep with a future that is saying economic freedom is a reality, the same way political freedom became a reality. That Nelson Mandela ushered in political freedom and his generation. That our mission as a generation is to deliver economic freedom in our lifetime. We love Nelson Mandela because when he left office, he said to us, "Aluta continua." Aluta continua means the struggle continue. You must ask yourself, what did Nelson mean about this? Because we've got political freedom. He meant that he played his role. He meant that Onkgopotse Tiro played his role. Chris Hani played his role. Steve Biko played his role. Winnie Mandela played her role. And therefore, you need to determine what is going to happen in the future. The future I belong to is the future of the red flag. The future I belong to is the future that looks like my blood. The future that I belong to is the EFF. And in the spirit of Onkgopotse Tiro, no fear will determine my destination. No intimidation will determine my destination. No prison can imprison my ideas. You can imprison me now. My ideas will multiply the same way the Onkgopotse Tiro ideas multiplied in Onkgopotse Tiro Hall today. We've got multiple Onkgopotse Tiro young people who are saying, like Onkgopotse Tiro, no elder shall tell us that we are future because they want to isolate us today. Our future is today. We are leaders now. We are not leaders tomorrow. That's why we are saying to those who want to isolate the youth, you failed in isolating Steve Biko. You failed in isolating the black consciousness. You failed in isolating the 1976. You failed in isolating the Feast Must Fall. And therefore, we are a new generation inspired by generations that were governed by determination. We are a generation of no surrender, no retreat. Victory is certain. I thank you.
Amandla! Away! 2! Long live the Commander-in-Chief, long live! Long live the Commander-in-Chief, long live! Hands off the Commander-in-Chief, hands off! Hands off the Commander-in-Chief, hands off! Hoza, 4th November, Hoza! Hoza, 4th November, Hoza! Hawo nyamazwe, nyamazwe, nyamazwe. Oh, akamugeza te, tengamayeza. Hawo nyamazwe, nyamazwe, nyamazwe. Oh, akamugeza. Chu, chu, chu. Omasyo tengamayeza. Amandla. Away 2. No, thank you very much to the Commander-in-Chief and President of the EFF for giving us the message of victory. Comrades, we are now going to give to the National Coordinator to deal with the rest of the program. I don't know, President, if you want to take questions. Or we're just going to take one round of questions, just 5 hands, as it is the culture in our public lectures that we allow questions very quick to the point. You don't speak for long. Please don't address us. Just a quick 30-second question that you would like to pose to the President and the Commander-in-Chief. We're just going to take a few hands, and thereafter we will conclude our program of the day. Do we have hands from this side? Do we have a hand here? Take that one, just one. And then this side, just one. Here. Is there anyone else? Very quick.
No.
Please stand, fighter.
Okay, thanks. No, thanks a lot, Comrade National Convener. So I would like to pass my revolutionary greetings to the Commander-in-Chief, the Deputy President, and all CCT members, BETF, and all fighters who are here. So my question is very simple. Previously, our youth were confronted with the previous injustices of the past, where they were excluded racially from participating professionally. Now the struggle has emerged in a new terrain, where institutions of higher learning isolate students in terms of their previous historical debts, their academic exclusion in terms of G rules, and if you are not financially qualified, then you are not allowed to enter into any institutions of higher learning. So how can we get to resolve those particular exclusions which I've mentioned, which are mainly academic and financial.
All right. Thank you, fighter.
So that we can
We've
get to
captured it.
resolve.
We've captured it. There was one there. Let's get a female. I think it was a male. Let's get a female hand. Female fighter and student. You are fine. Okay. Oh, there's a hand here. The black. Keep straight, short, and to the point, fighter.
Greetings to the leadership. Without waste of time, President, I want to understand what is the EFF doing with universities trying to depoliticize students by victimizing them with disciplinaries, suspension, and expulsion. I know most of comrades that are expelled. What is the EFF doing with that? Thank you.
I'm taking last hand. Is there anyone else going once, going twice? I don't see a hand. All right. Where? Last hand here. Straight to the point, fighter. 30 seconds.
Thank you, leadership. My question is very simple because we are continuously complaining about unemployment. If we can go to Mogalakwena, Mukopane, there are a lot of mines. Those mines that are there are not benefiting the community at all. But as the EFF, what is it that we're going to do in order to solve the problem of taking those minerals to other countries without beneficiating the communities?
Thank you, fighter. I think those 3 hands are sufficient, President.
Thank you very much. The convener of this Youth Command, and thank you for those questions. We, like I said, we have a campaign called Sofunda Ngengane campaign, which is aiming at no child being excluded from higher education because of whatever reason. Now, if at an institution of higher learning you do not qualify for university, there is TVET, where you can go and get the necessary qualifications, and through those qualifications, if you are really wanting to get a university qualifications, you can come back to the university. So there is no child in South Africa who must be excluded because there are no opportunities. That's why this thing is called higher education and training. It's not for education only. There are SETAs that have got a responsibility to provide certain trainings, especially with regard to the relevant sectors they're dealing with. So it is the responsibility of the EFF and the Youth Command to identify those who have been unfairly excluded and fight for them to be integrated into an education system, because rightfully so, you are saying exclusion is not only financial, it's also academical. I used to lead a lot of strikes here at the University of the North, Tefloop. When I came in here, it looked different. It means I've not been here for too long. Where we're fighting something which was called a rule. If you don't perform to a particular expectation, they will exclude you. And they targeted political activists. And that we fought against in our youth days. And they might have brought it back through other names. But it remains the same, and it remains the responsibility of you, the current generation, to fight any form of exclusion, especially when it comes to student activists. By virtue of being an activist, you are going to be excluded. You're going to be targeted. That's why Tiro reminds us that every revolution has got casualties. And that's why when Onkgopotse Tiro was excluded, the youth stood up not only here in Tefloop, all over South Africa, including in the University of Cape Town, because they said they want to silence us by silencing Onkgopotse Tiro. So We cannot be crybabies like those who came before us have never confronted this challenge. That is why it is called a struggle. It's forever there, and our children will inherit it unless and until we find a progressive government that will introduce progressive laws which will be biased to the working class and the youth of South Africa. Well, capital and imperialist forces survive through depoliticizing the youth. That's why they advertise alcohol. Who's going to learn politics in alcohol? That's why they want to make you believe so much that by going to church our problems are going to be solved. That's why you pray for the God of Israel, the God of Jerusalem, that is bombarding innocent children of Palestine. And they want to keep you there because they want to depoliticize you. They want to use religion to lull the society so that the society is not political. And a political society cannot confront the system. And that's what the system enjoys. That's why they say to you, you are unemployed because of Zimbabweans. You don't have land because of Zimbabweans. You don't have economic opportunities because of Zimbabweans. We faced Zimbabweans. We faced Malawians. We took them home. Some Zimbabweans are still in Musina. If you are staying in a back room, you are still staying in a back room even when Zimbabweans are gone because they lied to you. They said to you, all of your problems are caused by Africans. How can a person who's suffering the same pain as you cause you a problem? You are all victims of capital. You are all victims of slavery. You are all victims of colonialism, of imperialism. All of Africa. That's why when you go to America, to China, to Eastern Europe, everywhere of Europe, and you say, I'm from South Africa. But, oh, how is Lagos? Because they can't differentiate all of you. They are treating you as one because you are hated everywhere. Then they come in and depoliticize you by planting a seed of division. And you see your fellow African as an enemy. And you see a European occupier as an investor. A person who keeps you out of the gates of the economy is the most loved person. This economy of South Africa was built by all of Southern Africa. All of Southern Africa, African economy was colonized by Cecil Rhodes. All of us. These mines you are talking about, they were worked by everybody. This Johannesburg of gold you are talking about, it was worked by everybody in Southern Africa. This country was built by all Africans who contribute. Leave what they say that, no, they got you in exile. Leave that. They did it here. That's why there is a language called Fanaka law. Because Mozambicans, South Africans, the Zulus, the Xhosas, the Pedis, the Zimbabweans met underground when they were producing the minerals and could not speak to each other. They had to develop a language called Fanaka law. The EFF was not there. But they say these people were brought by the EFF. We must check, when was the EFF formed? 2013. When was Fanaka law formed? And how did the Fanaka law language get formed? It was because Africans came together to work on the economy of Southern Africa. All of us colonized by one man, Cecil John Rhodes. His grave is here in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, it was named after him. It's called Rhodesia. It was named after Rhodes. So, all of us were squeezed by one man. One man. And then we instead of uniting against one man, we fight one another. All of these problems we see here can be driven to one man That's now Tambo and others removed his statue at the University of Cape Town. Because they said we cannot celebrate this evil force. To put a statue of a man who killed our people, stole our land and stole our minerals in public is to worship a criminal. That was a just cause to remove a statue of a criminal. So we are where we are because of the occupiers, not because of Zimbabweans. They do that to you because they depoliticize you. And that's why I'm telling you what I'm telling you, even when they say to you, don't vote for him because he says these things that he's saying, don't vote for him. I don't care about votes. I care about politicizing the youth. As long as you are politicized, if you are politicized, you are going to rise one day against the system, the evil system of Donald Trump. Why should we prioritize elections and votes over the lives of innocent children that were sleeping in cold weather in South Africa because you chased people out of Alexander? Here is Alexander. Millions of black Africans are squeezed together in one place. Next to Alexander, there is an open land owned by University of Witwatersrand. Witwatersrand, because it's associated with a white man. These blacks are scared to go and occupy that land. They would rather stay in squalor, squeezed, cramped, like sardines. And then they see a land that looked like it's owned by a white man. They will never go there. Instead of saying, but we can't live like this. Let's unite and go and take that thing. We don't do that. A good picture is a picture of Stellenbosch. What is that? Kamnandi, just outside Stellenbosch. There's a squatter camp. It's formalized now. There's a squatter camp here. Those guys stay like this. And it's a bit on a hill. When you are there, there is a beautiful land, green all over, going those many hectares, with one house of a white man in a 3,000 hectares of land. One white house, British colonial design house. They will never go there. And when I go to Kamnandi, I say to them, we must go and take that land. We must go and occupy that land. We can't live like this. They don't go, but I will never stop. Because to politicize people is not a quick arrangement. It's longevity. If you are used to quick, it's your own problem. We are used to longevity. So revolution is not I'm coming. No. Revolution is about working on instilling ideas on young people until they appreciate these ideas. And one day when the youth of Kamnandi stand up and go into that farm in Stellenbosch, they will be speaking about us the same way we speak about Onkgopotse Tiro. When he said those things, he never thought that he is going to live to see them. But he was saying them to instill and plant a seed that will be produced for future generation. And we are beneficiaries of what he said here in Teflo. So we formed the EFF to politicize the people, and we formed the EFF Youth Command to politicize the youth of South Africa because they wanted to depoliticize you by calling you AMA 2000. That you are so defocused, you have no idea what's happening, and they want you to believe that you have no role. Yours is just to push vibes, and you have nothing to do with what can change the country. And we're doing everything in our power to counter that. The mines should beneficiate the economy of South Africa. We must beneficiate those mines here. So every time you see a truck full of minerals going to that place in KZN, Richards Bay. When you see a truck from Skukun full of chrome, from Onkgopotse full of chrome, hitting the N1 to Richards Bay, you must know inside that truck is our jobs. They are going outside South Africa, those jobs. That's why we are fighting, that we need to beneficiate these minerals here. When you mine platinum, when you mine chrome, those who go and mine it is jobs. When you produce it and process it in a factory or industry here in South Africa, is jobs. When a finished product is produced and is sold to the outside world, is economic opportunities accompanied by jobs. So you will never create jobs with the economy you don't own. That's why we want to nationalize the mines. But the problem is, they say to you, if you nationalize the mines, the investors will go. We say, can you define what is nationalization? Nationalization means state ownership. So, we've got schools that are owned by the state, including this university, state-owned. Therefore, it is nationalized. But it doesn't mean there are no private institutions. So let's go and establish a mining company that is state-owned. When there are minerals that, like the Mokopane one is talking about, there in Mokopane, I don't know if Anglo is still mining itself, because Anglo is no longer mining in South Africa. They get a mining license and they give the mining to small companies to mine on their behalf. But in Mokopane, Anglo was mining itself. Why? The mineral was so profitable. The platinum in Mokopane, you didn't have to use sophistication and blast and all manner of things. Just with excavation, you are able to produce that platinum. It is profitable because you don't spend money to take it out. Those are the kind of licenses you give to a government mining company, because they must go and mine without spending too much money. Take out the mineral and sell that mineral and take that money into fiscus and give you free education paid for by the minerals of South Africa. I was in Botswana some few days ago. In Botswana, the government of Botswana owns 51% of their diamonds. In Botswana, all children who go to school, including overseas, the government pays for them through that diamond ownership. What makes matters worse about Botswana is that they don't only pay for the fees of these children, they also give them monthly allowance. They pay you for going to school. They thank you for going to school. They pay you from their diamond. I was in Washington when I was in the Youth League some years back, and I met the students of Botswana and we had an interaction like this. They were explaining what they are getting, and they were so spoiled. In Washington, they had all manner of complaints, and they were getting paid. And at that time, they were being given an equivalent of 7,000 to 8,000 that my mother never got throughout her life, monthly. That's what minerals do. If minerals properly used to benefit the people of that country, they can take you to school and still pay you for going to school. Hence the call that those who graduate and do not get jobs, they must be given a graduation allowance because they went to school. So, Akiri, you go to school in order to graduate and make money for your family. We said to you, go to school. Then you graduate, and then that thing we promise you that you are going to get money after graduation is not happening. We are the ones who said to you, go to school, you will be paid. If you don't get paid, we must pay you until we create jobs and put you into those jobs so that we stop paying you and the jobs pay you. So why will the private companies run from South Africa if a government owns a mining company? When we say let's create a state-owned bank, which was supported by Tito Mboweni when he was a Minister of Finance, they refuse. They say the state can't own the banks. What does the state have to do with owning banks? But we've got public schools and we've got private schools. We've got public hospitals and we've got private hospitals. Let's have public bank and private bank. Let the people choose which one they want to use without channeling them to Standard Bank, ABSA, and they all connive. A teacher that was teaching me geography in Mutlayaneng in Seshiu still drive the same Corolla I was driving when I was in high school. Why? Even teachers who are graduates, the civil servants who are graduates, they cannot afford to be loaned money by banks. That's why we must have a state-owned bank so that we can bank with our own employees. We can finance their cars. We can finance their own houses. We can finance those who don't qualify for NSFAS because their parents work for government, even when they are not paid nothing. The parents don't have nothing. But they say, no, she's working for government, therefore we can't finance you through NSFAS. The missing middle must be financed by the state. How do we finance them if we don't own the strategic means of the economy? Every economy that is able to sustain itself is an economy that is owned by the people, not the minority few. And we fully agree that beneficiation must happen. When we were last in Parliament with Ramaphosa, when I asked him about this, he agreed with me. He said, I fully agree, we must in-source workers. I fully agree, we must beneficiate in South Africa. But I don't believe him. Thank you.
Amandla. And that brings us to the end of the EFF 13th anniversary public lecture given to us by the Commander-in-Chief and President Julius Malema. We extend our greatest gratitude, immense gratitude to the Commander-in-Chief, the Deputy President, and the leadership of the EFF for holding this public lecture for us. It was very meaningful going into the 13th anniversary of the EFF. President, I don't know if you remember, but in 2015, we were in the same vicinity with launching the EFF Students Command as now the EFF Youth Command. So the fact that we are here today on the 13th anniversary of the EFF is really meaningful to us. Can we just all stand on our feet and give a round of applause to the Commander-in-Chief as we allow him to exit and thank him for leading us diligently. Sizofunda ngengane awushiwele shiwele wele wele oh sizofunda ngengane awushiwele shiwele wele wele oh malima tetelela sifuna ukufunda Tina sifuna ukufunda oh tiro tetelela sifuna ukufunda Tina sifuna ukufunda oh sizofunda mahala awushiwele shiwele wele wele oh So just to get to the tiny nitty-gritties, to just conclude the day, ukudla kwethu sekuzofika manje, but we just wanted... Oh, shut up. Okay, all right. So just to get the other things out of the way, we once again want to extend our gratitude to the economic freedom fighters for this public lecture, to the leadership of the province, of the Youth Command, to the SRC, to the Vice Chancellor. But the Vice Chancellor must know that even though we're happy with him today, it doesn't mean tomorrow we'll be happy. But thank you so much to the university management, and most importantly, our ground forces were EFF Youth Command, for making it their responsibility to make sure that this day is a success, and that all of us on Saturday were going out in our numbers to celebrate the 13th anniversary of the EFF. But also a round of applause to yourselves.